Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Battle Plan podcast. I'm your host. My name is Ross E. Smith, otherwise known as the Evolution Warrior. I run a business called Evolve. That's a consultancy, a training and coaching business. I work with individuals and organizations, releasing potential, enabling them to increase their performance across the board. Right now, it's really important that we understand where we are and where we're going next. The purpose behind this podcast is predominantly to uncover the solutions to some of the problems that perhaps are happening right now during this current situation, what with the virus, COVID-19, still ongoing. And obviously business has kind of changed shape a little bit. Well, we're hoping to help unearth some of the information underneath the problems that some of the world's greatest entrepreneurs are pulling up and utilizing. So I've got a very exciting guest today. He's actually a very good friend of mine. He's based across in Northern Ireland. So welcome to all of those of you that are listening in from Northern Ireland. He's been involved in property for 20 years. He's an avid property investor. He's constantly searching the market for new properties and building his portfolio and giving back, and also providing quality accommodation for his clients and his tenants. He's also the host of an amazing podcast called the Fire in the Belly podcast, and he's also a business mentor and coach. He's incredibly good at asking the right question at the right time. He's done that to me on a few occasions, and it's an absolute pleasure to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mighty Pete Lonton. How you doing, Pete?
Wow, thank you. What an introduction. You'd think I'd paid you or something. This is great. I love it. Thank you.
Don't be telling them that you paid me.
I love it, mate. Honestly, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. And I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to see you getting out there because you've so much to give. So it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to this.
Thanks, Pete. I think that's a good point you've made there. It's really important right now to be connecting with other entrepreneurs, with other business owners, people that are fighting the same fight, but perhaps don't have the solutions to some of the problems. This is the purpose behind this podcast, and specifically bringing people like yourself on who've got the scars from battle in the past and have perhaps got a few tools, tricks and techniques up your sleeves, and perhaps you've had some new insights recently. So my first question is, can you tell me a little bit more about you, and also let the audience know who you are, and what is your kind of perspective on life and business, and what's been the journey thus far, Pete?
Where do you start? Right. I suppose to start off to say, really, I mean, I'm 40 years old and I had 37 and a half years of being average. Yeah. And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, listen, I've achieved some great things. Like I say, you mentioned I've been 20 years in property. I worked in London for nearly 10 years. And I've done loads in my life, but do you know why sometimes you're not entirely sure how you ended up there. You drift, maybe you came through college and university and you do it because that's the thing to do. And then you go into a job and, you might be quite good at it, and it might be something that you understand, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's your passion. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a long time, and really there was a lot going on. But back in probably 2010, I was working away in London and doing a very successful job, and there was loads going on, and I'd really sort of found myself quite a niche. It was great. And in the March time 2010, my father passed away, and really from there, I remember getting back, and at the time my client actually phoned me, and my father passed away, and he phoned me about 3 days after that. I'd left the office and came home, and it was unfortunate because I was commuting backwards and forwards. And anyway, my client phoned me and sort of says, listen, sorry to hear about your loss. When are you coming back? And it was all in the same breath. And do you know, that kind of hurt. It's like, I've just had a major shift in my life, and I've been working. So at the time I would have worked with guys in America. I would have worked in guys in Asia Pacific, as we used to call it, in Africa. So because of all the different time zones, you'd have been working, say, from, I had a 2-hour commute into work. I was, typically from around 7, half 7, right through to 7 or 8 o'clock at night, plus a 2-hour commute. And for them to sort of, just say, when are you coming back? It was one of those things of going, I'll be back when I'm ready. And I was off for about 2 weeks, and I went back, and shortly after that, something very interesting happened, and I got back to the meeting, and there was, people were sort of saying, this is really urgent. And a switch had been flicked in me. Mm-hmm. And, they're saying, if this doesn't happen, such and such is going to happen. It was all about projects and construction stuff. And there was something inside me going, really? Is it really that serious? And you expect me to do this, and you expect me to do that. And, it was crazy times. And, I think a switch had been flicked at that point. And then not shortly after that, actually, I was in Canary Wharf in the underground. Again, it was fairly late at night, so there was queues, but not massive. And standing as people do, like sheep, they're all lined up at the wee doors, waiting for the train to come, and the doors open, you pile in and all the rest, And standing at this door, and then the tannoy comes on, and says, "Sorry, folks, the train's going to be a bit late. We have a jumper." Now, that's not the jumper you wear. That's unfortunately somebody that has seen that they don't want to live their life for whatever reason, or they're basically it's got too difficult for them, and they've jumped in front of the train. Yeah. Across the platform was a groan, and there was just a tone of the inconvenience. And a bit almost like Crocodile Dundee coming up to, it was New York you went up to, it was just that moment of going, what am I doing here? Yeah. This is just an inconvenience for people, that some poor bugger has, done this, for whatever reason that I don't know and I never will know. And to everyone else, it's just inconvenient, and I just, at that point, I was like, for me, do you know what? I'm out, and so I ended up coming home, and 2010, back to Northern Ireland. I mean, I have property in England, and I thought I'd never get out. I literally, from that point, 3 days later, I was home. It all sort of, the stars just aligned for me, and it was like, right, well, the one good thing. And interestingly, at that point, it was like, I think my father actually loved my career more than I did. And it was really interesting the way you do things, and people go, God, you're so good at it. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean that's what I want to do. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean it's your passion. So anyway, I got home, and for the next sort of 7 odd years, it was more 7, 8 years, I was working with a good friend of mine in a renewable energy company. And that did really well. So we grew the business, and it, it was great going from a company of 10,000 to a company of 10. And we sort of really grew that up, and there was a lot going on. The industry at the time was doing well. And then in Northern Ireland, people may or may not be aware, there was sort of a government scandal. Yeah. And it was all, they incentivized the renewable energy system and things like that. And unfortunately, the system was found to be flawed. So it over incentivized. So like with a lot of businesses, and it doesn't have to be anything in particular, but the business was actually accelerated and dropped because the government realized that they had actually over incentivized, and the government did what they did. They took drastic measures to save face and one thing or another. The problem is what had been promised was a 20-year promise. Right. So they more or less said, listen, we're a year and a bit into this. Maybe, I can't remember, it was maybe 2 years into it. It was a slow start, and then people realized how good the scheme was. And the government slammed the doors shut and actually said, we're not only that, we're going to reverse everything we've done here. So when you've built a business you've accelerated and grown a business, and this can be the same for anything, for almost a client that's too big to a business that grows too quickly and things like that. But it accelerated, and literally it burst the whole industry.
Interject and ask you a question. What were you at in terms of business turnover? How many employees did you have? What was the impact to you? What were you feeling at the time when that? Because obviously that's a huge exposure to risk. Yeah. On the proviso that you're taking one scheme and you're running with that. I take it wasn't as diverse as it needed to be at the time, and it suffered, didn't it? It popped the bubble, you said.
Yeah, I mean, generally, when I arrived, I can't remember the turnover when I arrived, but I know when we were finishing, we sort of built it up to just over a 2 million turnover. Between direct and indirect staff, we were probably in the region of about 20 to 25 staff. Yeah. So it wasn't a small company, it wasn't a big company, but it was doing well. A real, a very you call it almost a family business, and very strong ethics and morals. And I'd learned a lot from London and things like that, and we were you know, while other guys were sort of worrying about, you know, how to service, we were going the next level. So we were looking at the efficiency, we were doing remote monitoring, we were doing, you know, and all this. And, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save us, because whilst it affected one part of the industry, and unfortunately, the knock-on was in the entire industry. It actually took down the government here
Really?
in Northern Ireland. So yeah, so it's, I mean, you know, we sort of say we took down the government, but, you know, but there was so many lessons learned, because we held on to the business for about 2 years afterwards. I mean, we had sort of a war chest, and you know, we were evolving, but probably not quick enough, and not making decisions quick enough. Ironically, I would do things quite differently if I had my time again.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's when, you know, something's wrong, is like, take a decision. You know, and we didn't take a decision, and all we did was burn through the war chest.
Yeah.
And you know, but it was done for the right reasons. We wanted to protect our customers, we want to, you know, sort of honor all the warranties, make sure we could do as much as we can, but that was at our own sacrifice. And like anything else to say is, you know, put on your own life jacket first, and that's something we didn't do. You know, we looked after everyone else. But like I say, it was a lesson, you know.
Thanks for sharing that, Pete. That, I mean, that in itself is a very relevant story from the past that actually kind of fits into this current situation that we're in, because there's a good chance there's a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners out there that are in the same situation. So, you know, not being able to do business, not being able to engage with their customers, not even being able to go to the office, you know, not being able to serve, to provide the services that, you know, that they're passionate about, which is, you know, it's completely debilitating. So I think, you know, your experience from, you know, what year was that? Sorry, Pete, say again.
We closed the business, I think it was we stopped trading as around 2017. So that's, 3 years ago.
So it's still, you're still probably carrying some of the weight of it. And right now I would argue that, you know, you're well equipped to diversify, and we will get onto that shortly. But I think that story will resonate quite a lot with a lot of the listeners during this, you know, this pandemic.
I think, and it's important to say, I mean, I had a lot going on in my life at the time as well, you know, and it's an interesting thing, you know, because it's not just the physical act of, you know, shutting down a business and laying off staff, you know. You know, someone sort of used the expression the other day, so in situational depression. And I was, there's no doubt, because my father and my mother passed away before that, and then my father. And I openly say I've had depression twice in my life, and that was, you know, depression is a symptom, not a cause. And really that was a knock on from my father, but also it was situational depression. You know, the helplessness of what I was going through. And you know, and also had a sort of a newborn child, you know, after that as well. She was teething, and I literally, I've never ground my teeth in my life. And I started, you know, the pressure and the lack of sleep and the stress and the worry and what if, and, you know, the money and the staff and what's going on. And I literally, to this day, I'm missing a tooth, and I literally started grinding my teeth in my sleep. And I just remember sitting on the side of the bed, and it was sort of one of those poignant moments. And went to the dentist, and it was 2 days before Christmas, and it was a case of either you're taking this out or I am. And literally 10 minutes later, the tooth was out. You know, I mean, she begged me not to, and she wasn't my proper dentist and all the rest, you know. But it actually, you know, it's a wee bit of a reminder to me to go and listen. You know, things can get bad. You know, to know the light, you got to see the dark, and that was a dark spot. But you know what? It's something that I stand on the shoulders of that now. I don't, you know, I don't wallow in it, and it doesn't surround me. In fact, it actually makes me stronger. It's going, I'm never going back there.
This is what I feel makes you, you know, absolutely ideal as a business mentor. You know, the fact that you carry this this history with you, and, you know, when I said battle scars earlier on, I didn't actually mean physical ones. I didn't really teeth pulled out. So that story alone, you know, it's very powerful, and, you know, to have that in a you know, a business mentor like yourself, you know, breeds confidence, because people, in my experience working with my clients, is that they will only ever, you know, commit and go over that line once you've built, you know, that level of trust with them. And to build trust, you have to expose and be open, be authentic, and come from an ethical standpoint where they can see the colors of you, so they can see what your values are. And that for me puts you in a very strong position. And, you know, absolute credit to you. And I know the program's going really well, and there's a lot of great results coming out of it. So, you know, a little bit of feedback from me there. Absolutely smashing it, Pete. So, in terms of where you are now then, because I want to bring the audience forward a little bit, and I want to sharpen some of your feedback in terms of bringing that experience forward from the past now. You must feel a little bit more equipped, calm, and able to sort of steady your ship and potentially your clients as well, because you've got that experience in in your back pocket. But where were you when the COVID-19 situation was released, and what was happening for you right then? What was the situation?
What was happening for me? Not a lot.
That's what I like about you, Pete. Honest.
It honestly, because I have learned so much from losing the last business. Yeah. And I say losing, because ultimately, whilst you could say it was the government, was one thing another, I learned so much. I learned about customers. I learned about staff. I learned about systems. I learned about things like that. And I had taken I honestly say, listen, over the last 3 years, I've been on a development journey. And I always think it was almost meant to happen. I mean, it's great. I call it my, 37.5-year crisis. It's, and there's a book coming on that. And, there's so much there really where I'm saying, it's at the point when all the chips go down and you go, listen, the only person I have to answer to is me. And, it's like, what is it I want to do? And I literally, I took time out because, like I said, I put myself through so much. And I was lucky enough that actually, unbeknown to me, having built the property journey, so I had multiple streams of income already in place. So I mean, moving from London back to Northern Ireland, I mean, my salary was about 25% of what it was in London. And I got home and I was almost bracing for the impact and going, well, listen, I'll just work and hopefully things will work out. But the impact never came because the cost of living in London is 4 or 5 times greater than the cost of here. My commute to work at the time was, 20 minutes, and it was 25 minutes if I got stuck behind a tractor, whereas in London it was 2 hours. So it's like, oh, okay, this is different, really different, and I've got out of my comfort zone, but actually it's okay. So COVID's come along and sure, things are different, with trying to meet people and stuff like that, and it's like, well, okay, let's just take a step back here. Like a lot of people, I've sort of almost not disbelief, but I also don't buy into a lot of, what's sort of said on the news. I mean, I think sort of you've got about 5 or 10% fact and the rest is regurgitated and its opinion, so I literally generally don't listen to the news. I don't listen to the radio. But I suppose for me, I don't, I'm not worried about the situation. I also think, for me, I have blinkers on. It's like going, I know there's stuff going on around the world. Whilst the brain is an amazing thing, I also think by seeing, sort of COVID news from China, from Australia, from this happened, a local bad news, and unfortunately bad news sells quicker. You watch that on the news and it's Channel 2 and BBC News and, Sky News, they're all coming at you and the newspapers got it and everyone wants to talk about it. And did you hear this? And Facebook saying that. And I actually think the problem is the brain becomes so clouded. And then because the brain being the brain can take a situation and they see this dramatic picture, and it is dramatic because it hits the headline. And then your brain puts a whole picture around that and it imagines the family and all the rest. And then here's the next picture, because it's every 4 seconds or 8 seconds the picture changes. And your brain's sitting there going, oh my God, I'm still thinking of that family in Australia and I'm thinking of this and thinking of this and thinking of this. And the problem is, it's a bit like a battle plan. The problem is if you're focusing on what's going on, 2 miles up the road, and yet you're missing the stuff that's going on in front of you. Exactly. And it is that thing is going, listen, I don't mean to be cold here, but I have to switch off because, also the people that are bringing me the facts, they're also bringing me a lot of opinion too. And it is not a fact. So you've got to sort of say, listen, I've got to look after me. You've got to make sure that your reserves are correct. You've got to make sure that your, you know, almost your ammunition and you know, your own gear is prepped and ready around you. So for me, it's that cocoon has come on. I don't like calling it an opportunity, because there's a lot of people say that it's amazing. I just think there's like a huge reset button has been hit, and it is life-changing. I actually say this is almost bigger than the internet. Because the internet was phased in over 10, 15 years, and slowly it's all crept into our lives to the point that it's massive. But to stop the world, and it's not a political threat, and I'm really grateful that it's not a political threat or a terrorist threat or anything else. It stopped the world in kind of almost quite a, I know it has deadly consequences, but at the same time, you sort of go, do you know what, to do what it's done to the world and bring it to a standstill. And there's never been so many opportunities. People go, if I had more time, I'd do this. If I had this, I'd do this, you know.
All that.
Suddenly, you know, so for me, you know, and really the sort of stuff I've been putting into place and the stuff I've done in business, which actually means that, you know, I personally believe everyone should have at least 9 sources of income, you know, and generally most of those should be passive. And, you know, that's the number of things that sort of COVID comes and go, okay, I guess. I mean, the hardest thing at the moment is, you know, we've got 3 young kids in the house. That's my hardest problem at the moment, is just keeping them entertained and trying not killing each other. So.
I think there's a lot of people in that boat. I'm fortunate in one sense that I don't have rugrats running around my feet, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that do. You mentioned having that clear focus, and obviously from your story from back in 2017, you recognise now upon reflecting that you weren't making a decision in any particular way, shape or form. You were, you know, carrying your suit of armour, for want of a better description, to protect self and to protect your customers and all that kind of thing. Would you have done anything differently given your experience and all that time to reflect now? What would you advise someone in that same situation right now?
There's so much, you know, and to probably to bring it slightly into context, is that's really where Fire in the Valley came about for me.
Okay.
You know, the actual expression. Because, you know, you bring into that, and as I was doing at the time, it's like you kind of go back to basics, like in the army, like in everything else. You got to strip away all the situational information and what's going on. You go, come back to basics. What do we know? And, you know, it's like, because, you know, facts, information, stuff going on, and it is noisy out there, because that's the job of marketers, that's the job of the ego, that's the job of everything else. And, you know, someone's trying to protect you, and then someone's trying to give you your opinion, and somebody means well for you and somebody doesn't. So I kind of, I'd say almost subconsciously went into, you know, power save mode, and it literally was that sort of darkening down. And situational depression is probably a pretty good definition, actually. By going back to basics and going, okay, I'm lucky, and a bit like there is at the moment, is lucky the whole world has stopped here. Like, what do I actually want? You know, and it's like, well, you know, I had a very good career, and then we had a renewable energy company, and listen, wasn't perfect. There was highs, there was lows, there was goods, there was bads. You know, it's like, right, well, at the time, and I suppose where I come to and say, listen, at the moment, I don't want customers, and I don't want staff, to be brutally honest. Only because of, there was so much emphasis being put onto me. Now, I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a building engineer by trade, and project manager. So, but I'm a very visual thinker. And quite early on in that, I had actually looked at, you know, systems and tools. So we had actually put into place, you know, sort of online toolkit. So, you know, people, and it was to serve more. So we, you know, customers would be saying, just listen, can I have this spare part, or can we do this and do this and do this? So literally we went in and we built an online shop. Now, very quickly we had staff, because people used to phone up, you know, you'd hear them on the phone, and like with any business, to be on the phone, oh, Joe, how's it going? Yeah. Oh, it's, yeah, chatting away, no brother, okay. Yeah, how's the wife? Yeah, great. Right, this thing you have here, it's I need something for it, and it's the blue widget. You know, the blue widget, and then you go, Jesus, what version was that now? I'm trying to think of what that was. And is that Joe on that road, or is it the other road? And oh Christ, I've written Joe's number down wrong. And then, listen, I really need it urgently. Can you send it out? You have my address, don't you? I think I got your address. Yeah, Joe, this is going to cost money. Joe, oh yeah. Honestly, I'll send you a check in the post. I will. But I need it today now, of course, because it's letting us down.
Yeah.
So we had all this going on. So anyway, long story short, we set up an online shop.
Yeah.
And I was fought in the business. It was like, it's expense. It's not necessary one thing or another. Within 12 months, that business went to turn over about 120,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you're probably on roughly 25% profit margins on that. So listen, it's good in some, and like, it's not the end of the world. What it did do, we noticed very quickly that most of our customers were ordering between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
The money was in the bank before they did. The address was verified.
Yeah.
Joe had put in his own details. He had picked it from the picture. He'd done this before. He was a recognized customer. There was a follow-up email saying, thank you for this. Will you send us a review?
Mm-hmm.
We can add on, instructions for him and everything else. And literally we went from being, a front end sort of busy person and busy business to we are systemized with a plan, with a structure. Here's how we do business. And people going, I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like you, in that situation there where you just discussed, you had a very clear battle plan, to use the name of the podcast. It was a very, logical route to the result, which fundamentally was to make sure that the customer or the client, received their goods, whether they were services or products or whatever. And it was manageable. So I just want to, reiterate to the audience how important, because I'm learning things as you're talking, or more so reinforcing the importance of a few things. So it's having a clear route to getting your product to market, I guess, and having that on some form of automation, because, the less that you have to do in your business, the more time you have back to do other things, such as lead it and grow it, and also to find balance, in life. Would you agree there, Pete?
Yeah, there's several points you brought out there. It's never been easier to do business. That's the long and short of it. Yeah. It's never been easy to do business well. Mm-hmm. With software and tools, we're talking a video call here. 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been doing a video call. The other side of the world. You can live stream, you can do this, you can share thoughts, you can share ideas. The cost of storage, the cost of cooperation and things like that. But so much of this has come in from mindset. For me, it's down to you can be a very small person, but if you have a very direct view, with tools, with a battle plan. Mm-hmm. You can be, I used to say, our online shop was like the equivalent of probably 2 to 3 staff.
Yeah.
But the running cost was about £100 a month. It worked 365 days a year, 24/7, 365, and did exactly what we told it to do. Yeah. Now it had the hard hiccup, but listen, when you're sort of going, a member of staff is probably going to cost you 10, 12, 14, 16,000, whatever it is. And they've good days and they've bad days, and they've got great attitude and bad attitude, and stuff's going on, and they get run-ins, and this happens and that happens. There's a lot to be had, but then they love you and they leave you, and things like that happen as well. Yeah. Whereas when you use systems and tools and like a good battle plan, you kind of go, this is what it is. Mm-hmm. Now it mightn't be the only battle plan we have, and we're going to have to keep reevaluating, keep checking back. Where are we on our goals? What are we trying to achieve? Mm-hmm. Has everything stayed the same? But being really clear on where you're trying to go to, and almost saying is like, this is what I'm trying to do. And, how do I either think outside the box, or how can I do more for less? Whilst I've got a family, I love to work, but I don't call it work. Yeah. It's chatting, and I'm a very visual thinker. Like I say, I am dyslexic and have ADHD. So, I will never write for leisure or pleasure. Mm-hmm. However, when someone, when you talk about a battle plan, I have this like sketches in my mind going off, and a bit like your sort of whiteboard wall in the back there. Let me at that with a whiteboard pen, and I go crazy.
I've seen you go out at a notepad and pen with a crayon, mate. You'd step back, he's away.
Well, it's great,
I've watched you do it firsthand, and you inspired me, and I'm being genuine right now. You carry, this might be something the audience might want to take on board. It's certainly something to be thoughtful of. is that you're very good at capturing your ideas, your inspirations, your insights. You're never seen very often without an A3 sketch pad, are you? And a packet of pens. In fact, it's close to hand. There we go. There it is. Pete, you know, Pete's an absolute genius at pulling things out of other people, but he's also very consciously aware of, you know, when in conversation like this. I mean, we've had a few, you know, mirror sessions, shall we say, where we've had challenges or opportunities to work through, and we've shared each other's time. And you know, Pete, he's not disengaging with you, he's just engaging with what's going on inside, and that's really important. I think that's a really important point to make, and hopefully the audience pick up on that, because if you're not doing that, you're missing the absolute genius that's being offered up to you, you know, by, shall we say, energy, you know. It's, you know, I mean, what's your take on that, just out of interest? Because for me personally, I refer to it as just energy, because I've had some huge breakthroughs, you know, over the last couple of years, and one very recently, and it just felt like, and I still feel it now, even though I'm, you know, on this podcast right now, I'm not outside, I don't have bare feet on the grass, you know. I feel connected to the center of the earth, and I feel like there's this energy that's being provided to me, and just neurologically, my mind is just awash with ideas, insights, and just like, I mean, I've covered up a lot of my notes. There's a bit of sensitive information, because they're my ideas, because in a lot of the personal development books, especially the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, you know, you've got to get those ideas down, because if you don't use them, somebody else will. And, you know, I bet there's plenty of people out there that are listening right now that you've had an idea and you've not acted upon it, and then all of a sudden someone's put something into the market space that you were operating in, and you just think, missed opportunity. So yeah, no, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. So listen, I want to ask you a few more questions about what you're doing now. I want the listeners to understand how you've used that experience, how it's evolved from that online shop, from the you know, from the past. I want to talk a little bit more about the fire in the belly. I guess the brand, and you know, the Mighty Pete Lonton, because that's how you're known, the Mighty Pete Lonton. So, but before we do that, if there are listeners that are interested in just having a quick look, you know, whilst we're continuing to talk, you know, talk through that on this episode, how can they get in touch with you, Pete? Do you have a website of any sort, Facebook page? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we've the website is www.fireinthebelly.net, and there's also mightypete.com. So they're the sort of the easiest ways to get me, and then there's links there for Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the rest. So yeah, that's the super easy. To go back to a couple of your questions there, I think, you know, it's almost like the Tupperware click. And, you know, there's nothing more satisfying when you get the lid of a piece of Tupperware and you click it down, and, you know, it's like, that's what it is. And I think that's almost what, you know, to me, that's the way I would think about the way you're describing, is when something clicks into place and you know it's secure, it's the right fit, it's perfect, it's safe, it's there, and it's meant to be. And that's something, I got to be honest, and it's like something I only became conscious of and aware of, and you know, probably really in the last 3 years of my life, you know, and it's actually getting more now, it's probably 4, but you know, that sort of change. And, you know, as you were asking there, really, for when I sort of stripped everything back to basics, you know, I personally believe we are all capable of so much, you know, and it's like, if you go in with the assumption that we all have the possibility of doing phenomenal things, absolutely phenomenal. So, you know, you sort of, you get past the conscious mind and says, oh, I couldn't do that. Okay. You go, right, well, listen, just play a little game here for the crack, right? And say, right, well, 5 years or 10 years down the line, you know, just stuff goes your way, you know, it just all happens to be the way you want it to be. And, you know, money comes to you very easily, and, you meet the right people and stuff's going right, it's like, where would you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the number of people that can't answer that question, but two, then you go in and going, right, well, I would really love to work with kids, okay? Or I'd love to be doing the world's best tea cozy knitter, or I'd love to be coaching, helping people, or I'd love to be so much. You go, okay, and you can see because they start using the language, go, oh, I'd love to do that, and God, I'd really like to that. Do you think I could do that? And you can see the energy levels here, and they go, and they're standing proud. And you generally know because you're either starting to pick up the energy. You might have no ideas what they're talking about. You suddenly get excited about it yourself. You go, oh, God, that sounds amazing, Like any good marketer or anything like that, when they're enthusiastic about your product, it's going, I'm just buying you. I have no idea what you're selling me, but I'm buying it.
I just want it. Where do I?
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that was almost, I believe we all have fire in the belly. So if we go in with the assumption that we all have an opportunity, okay? So my belief is that we're born with a fire in the belly. So it's an inner energy. Now, like a match, a match can be used to light a romantic candle. It can be used to light a cigarette, or it could be used to burn down a forest. It's the same match. It's just a potential energy. It's a potential source. Okay. What you choose to do with it in your life is your choice. It is a choice. It's something you got to decide to do. I decided 3 odd years ago to just take a change and say, listen, I'm good at what I do, but you know what? I'm not getting the clunk click. I'm not getting the Tupperware click. It's like what I want to do. And I was at a point in my life and saying, listen, enough's enough. I respect the opinion of the people around me, but they might necessarily know the way I'm thinking and the opportunities and what I see. Nobody else is seeing what I see. And, when you go in with the assumption of going, listen, I think I have a potential. I just, someone says, how do you know it's going to work? I just know. Okay, well, what's knowing? Well, I just know. Yeah, but explain that. Okay, I don't know. I just know. And it's almost that thing is like this inner belief, and it's when, it's alignment. It's like a lot of things, where it's coming in and you going, when when you find something, you give it to a kid and they focus on it, and God, and they can't get out of their head, and, they're excited, they're physically excited, and they're, they want to sort of tell you all about it. Well, that's almost when you get a passion or something in your life, when you suddenly clunk click, it comes into place, and it is like, like a rocket, when all the parts line up, suddenly that energy is pointed all in the right place. So when you find that fire in the belly, the thing that you were, meant to do, and you might necessarily know if it's going to work out yet, but it's something that you find yourself Googling at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're excited to try it, and you want to read another book. Like, I'm dyslexic. I have never read for leisure, pleasure. I've got a shelf full of books here. Think and Grow Rich is one of them. And I now read it. I have reading groups, and we masterminds, and we go through the book, and I'm doing it, and like I scribble like mad. It's like going, oh, look at this. When I left university, you could have burnt the building down. Now I'm going, I will be learning to the day I die. As for ideas, all you need to know is like, listen, when there's been one good idea, believe me, there's a million others behind it. So almost by letting like any pipe or anything else, just let it flow. When that idea comes out there, and we talk about this, and then the more you get into flow. So flow is a brilliant place. When you get someone into their flow state, so you find their passion, you get them into their flow state, and then you actually get the sort of tactics, and you start saying, where is it? And that's where it takes the likes of a coach like yourself, and getting a plan together, going, I know really what you want to do, and you've told me, because you're almost bouncing on the seat with the energy. The energy is trying to come out of you, going, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. So okay, that's cool. We just got to make sure that this energy, rather than dissipating out like a bomb or like something else, going out there, is like, if we can focus that into one, one source, you will puncture through everything. It's that absolute belief. It is that focused effort. When you get your bad day, when you see things that are an opportunity. COVID-19 is an opportunity. And that's what I mean about it. The world has slowed down. So it's huge.
It's an absolute, that's my message as well. It's, hence getting this information out there, because I want to talk about your specific strategy now. I want you to I don't expect you to sort of expose your entire back office, Pete, but if you can just talk into how you've diversified and overcome some of the perhaps problems that are now, again, opportunities but maybe problems for the listeners, you know, the entrepreneurs out there that are in a similar situation but don't have that experience. So I guess my question is, what are the specific opportunities that you've identified during this period, and what specifically are you doing about it to diversify and, you know, build resilience into your business?
I think there's so many things. The one thing people sort of forget is everything they need to know is within them. You know, and that can sound a bit woo-woo, you know, but actually you got to remember that you are more capable than you will ever realize. Your own brain, you know, just as we sit here, I can't remember the stats. There's something like 20,000 cells die in your body every day, every day of the week, and yet your brain does that. You know, your brain is doing a temperature check. You know, currently we're here, but my brain is also checked to see if there's noise going on outside. There's a million things, and then I'm thinking about my dinner and think I'm thirsty, and I've seen this, and I'm watching you, and I'm hearing this, and I'm feeling this, and there's so much going on. So if we just go on the assumption of saying we are all capable of so much, okay, so I can't leave my house. It's like, well so what? You know, and it's like, I don't know, Prince EA and a couple of guys talk about it. It's like, you know, yeah, but I can't go outside. Well, so what? You know, have you got yourself? Have you got your family around you? You know, do you have a warm, safe environment? Yes. Okay. Right. Do you have connection to the internet? Do you have a phone? Yes. Okay. That's all you need. You know, it is there, and it's starting to go, right, well, okay, you know, and the term pivoting has been used a lot, which I kind of agree. I think not everyone understands the full benefit and the impact of it. You know, and listen, pivoting is fantastic, and saying, yeah, okay, well, listen, let's start off with a clean sheet of paper. And there's actually a module I'm doing on called Reset. You know, it's like, I often joked and saying, imagine, you know, people, it's coming to this time of year when you want to spring clean. Like, imagine if you got rid of all the crud and all the stuff, and you go, oh, it's really important. And then it's like, well, when's the last time you looked at it? Oh, a year, maybe a year ago, you know? It's like, well, it's obviously not that important. You know, and it's like, it's almost blocking you, you know, a bit like a weightlifter that they're going around carrying the weights. They go into the gym, they lift it, and then they leave, but they continue to carry the weights. It's like, well, why are you carrying all that shit with you? You know, it's like, well, how about just letting it go and seeing what you could do? You know, so this moment in time saying, well, all you need is a pen and a piece of paper. You know, and if you start looking, going, well, what would I love to do? You know, if nothing else was going on, what could I do out there? And that's when it's quite often, I mean, I call it, it's like, I get my most inspiration in the shower, but it's only a whisper. You know, my you call it my super subconscious, my subconscious mind, you know, that's the bit inside me. And it goes, oh, you could do this. But unfortunately, it says it once, and then it whispers it, and then it goes.
That's
right. It could be going, God, that'd be really great. I wonder what I want for tea. I said, whoa. What did you just say? That was gold.
Come back. Exactly.
when you're busy in life and work, and listen, I have to do this, and I need to do that, and the mortgage and the life and the kids and blah 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 blah. You know, you sort of go, oh, okay, you know, I could have done that, and you know, and you almost convince yourself that actually it's not for you and all the rest, you know. But if you just take that for a moment, going, what if? You know, what if there, and it comes down to the compound effect, which is a beautiful concept, and the Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, is a great book. But you know, even there, probably about a year and a bit ago, you know, LinkedIn was one of my marketing strategies, and going in there, and someone saying, you know, it's like, it's all about connections, you know. So I'm sitting there going, so I will basically connect with about 20 people a day. And it's like, well, now I'm sitting here, like say, it's about 12 or 18 months on now, and I've now got 12,500 contacts. You know, so I'm building a network. It's going in there and going, well, what do I really want? You know, how do I feel about that? So it's like when you see someone doing something else, is going, you know, you take all the noise apart, you know, it might make you angry, it might make you happy or sad or whatever. And it's like, let's look at that feeling, you know, separate out the ego, because there's a lot of stuff goes on because of ego. And you saying, right, well, okay, here's a good idea. How would I feel if I didn't follow in? You kind of go, no, it's okay. Or if you say, here's another idea, or I saw someone else doing it, how did you feel? And you're going, I was really angry. Okay, why were you angry? You know, and you're talking to yourself. It's like, just give yourself a bit of space. You know, for me, it's the chimp paradox, you know, it's coming back in and saying the ego to me is a monkey. Now the monkey is there. He's good. He has to be there, and that's okay because you're best of pals and you've always been together and you always will be together.
Mm-hmm.
But is it like, is he angry or is he sad or is he happy or what way is he going on?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the tools and techniques I would use there and say, right, well, let's do a bit of life goals, but let's push it out to 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we go back to that exercise and say, listen, imagine if just life was going great. So we're going to give you 8 categories and saying, where would you want to be financially?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you want to be in terms of where you live, your family, your lifestyle, everything's going on. So we're going through all those things, going 10 years out. It's just a bit of fun. By saying almost it's a bit of fun and going through it that way, it's great because the ego sort of goes, well, this is a silly game. I'm going off to see something else. So the ego, almost being the conscious mind, the ego says, yeah, whatever, okay, it's just a bit of fun. It says, well, that's never going to happen. It's just a bit of fun. Let's just go with it. So next thing you go, right, okay, so to be there in 5 years, right, I'd love to have, my mortgage paid off. I'd love to have a brand new car, XYZ. I'd love to be here and I'd love to be doing marathons or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So to be there in 5 years, where would I need to be in 3?
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically taking a slightly watered down version of that. And you sort of go, well, okay, to have the mortgage paid off, I need to be getting extra income. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing running and all the rest. Okay, to be there in 3, where would I need to be in 1 year? Okay, to be in 1 year, I need to go through and, I'd be doing a little bit more, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month. What do I need to do today to get to my 5-year goal? Okay, because that 5-year goal is my passion. That's my fire in the belly. That's where I want to get to. A bit like with Mighty Pete. It's like, am I Mighty Pete? Yes, I am, but I'm also becoming him more and more every day.
Yeah, cool.
It's a differentiator for a start. People go, instead of going, I'm Pete Lonton, which is better, Pete or Mighty Pete? Okay, Mighty Pete puts a smile on my face straight away, and also it's like a suit of armor. It's kind of going, yeah.
What?
It's a brand, that's the thing, so it's branding yourself and having the confidence, and every day I get stronger into that.
Yeah.
And also then saying, right, well, actually, when I did this exercise first, the activity I needed to do to get to my 5-year goals was to clear out my van. That day, the only job I had to do that day was to clean out my van, because that then meant that job was done. That meant I could be more efficient and I could do something else and move on and on and on. So it's about the compounding effect. You do a little bit every day. You find out what your passion is. And as you go on, you work slightly harder. You'll talk to more people. You get the opportunity to meet the likes yourself, Ross, and we exchange ideas. And you fire off things in my head and you're going, Ross, that's brilliant. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and vice versa, I hope I do that for you. And it's like, it's cooperation, not competition. Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful thing, and saying, right, well, I absolutely want you to do fantastically well. And I know you will,
mm-hmm.
Vice versa. So I'm not worried. People say, oh, I do, I share too much.
Mm.
But it's the same time, I am absolutely believing that in the universe, there's more ideas there than, I could use an entire lifetime. So like a hose, it's coming to you, the stream. It's like, well, let the idea go and let it blossom. Mm-hmm. And that's fine, because there'll be, believe me, there's like a, buses, there'll be loads more coming after it, but it's putting it into place. And you can either, if you were setting off a rocket or something else, or even like a battle plan, if you're focused on something going forward and you're too busy half the time looking in the rear view mirror and looking behind you, your risk is suddenly shot up. So, oh, I could have had that back there. And, oh, what's he doing back there? And what's going on here?
Yeah.
Whereas you're going, I'm going here. I'm laser focused on where I'm going. I have peripheral vision to watch out for risks coming from the side and to, things that are going to upset me or put me off track and things like that. But I'm going from here to there.
Yeah.
Sorry, bit of a rant, but there you go. I get into flow.
Rant, mate. I was buzzing. A couple of questions for you. The first one's really serious. So obviously you have loads of ideas, loads of insights, and you say you get a lot of them in the shower. Do you take your A3 pad in the shower with you, or do you rush out and almost like break your neck in the process? Well, what's the crack there then?
I generally have my phone, so the notes app on my phone will be there. We're refurbing our house at the moment, so I will be putting a whiteboard in the shower. That's the one thing I've said. So so it's great, but I go out for long walks and things like that, so when I'm going for long walks, and you'll know in terms of goal setting. So even now, because it used to be I was sort of going, right, I need to lose weight, and that's it's away from goal.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's going, I love going out for a walk, because it gives me a bit of free mental space. And a couple of wee tips that I use. So I again, because when I'm out walking, that's when I'm good. I love listening.
Yeah.
So Audible is like my best friend. So up until about 3 years ago, I'd read probably 1 or 2 books at best in the last 10 years. Audible, I probably have about 120, 130 books in my Audible library, which I listen to at about 1.5 times speed.
Yeah.
Because if it's normal speed, my brain's like, yeah, I'm bored, or
Yeah, agreed.
do you know what I mean? I speed it up a bit, suddenly it hits the frequency of my brain and my thinking. Too fast, and my brain's like, oh, what was that? And it's too much. But when it speeds it up, suddenly it's almost like a frequency. It's where actually they match, and suddenly my brain speed and the audio is coming in at me. So walking somehow does that for me. And then I do find my mind tends to drift, and that's exactly where Fire in the Valley came about. Was literally I was out pushing the kids in the pram, and I was going, what's gut feeling, what's Fire in the Valley, what's this? And for some reason, Fire in the Valley kept coming back and back and back, and going, what's Fire in the Valley? What is that? And asking a great question can do some amazing things. You ask, I love it. It's Q&A, which is questions and actions. You ask a question and then you take action.
Yeah.
You do that, and no different like a battle plan. You ask the question, have I understood this correctly? Am I doing exactly what I want to be doing? How does this feel? Does this feel good? Let's go. Boom.
That's one of the things that I say with my clients is that, the quality of your life is always in direct proportion to the quality of the question that you'll ask yourself. Because of course, as a coach, as a consultant working with 10-figure businesses, just like yourself from times gone by, and obviously leading businesses and now carving a new version of you as the Mighty Pete, which is fantastic, by the way. And I think it's very you, mate. That's for sure. Booyah! We can't answer any of their questions. All of the questions, or the answers, should I say, to the questions that perhaps the audience might have in their mind. And I'm hoping that some of this conversation, your backstory, what you're up to right now, as maybe connected a few dots for them. But predominantly as a coach, we lead by question, and our only tool, or the tool that leads the front of all of our potential models that help guide people, is the ability to ask the right question at the right time. And you've got that skill. So I just want to highlight some of the things that you said, just to bring out some of the content and just pinpoint those points. So in terms of where people might be right now, listeners that are in a similar situation that you were some time ago, perhaps a little bit of overwhelm occurring. So you suggested, first and foremost, is go out to the future. So identify what that long-term goal is. So that's kind of the pertinent one, to start giving the mind focus. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then secondarily, you talked about breaking it down. Now, I understand why that's important. But can you just explain from your perspective why you feel that's important, breaking it down to that, empty the van stage?
Yeah, it's probably the best analogy is eating an elephant. You can't do it in one sitting, because like anything, when people are viewing successful people and it's going, I would love what he has. And I had the great fortune, probably the best person I know, and some people will know him, some people won't, is Grant Cardone.
Yep.
And I had the great fortune of meeting him last year.
Yep.
And there's two things. Here's a guy that at 41, he was doing okay. He literally had a normal job. There was lots going on, but there was nothing extraordinary about him. And listen, that's the thing. You then fast forward him 20 years later. So I met him when he's 61.
Yeah. And
the guy's sitting here, and he's sitting on a stool. There's 8 of us in the room, and he's sitting on a stool and saying, Grant, what's your fire in your belly? What's your secret? But this guy's 61, and he's sitting there going, he's debating whether or not, because somebody else asked him the question, going, Grant, are you going to hit the $1 billion in personal wealth? Now we're sitting in London. This guy's flown in his private jet from America.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there going, man, I don't know. He says, I'm like $600 or $700 million in, my personal wealth. And I don't know, but I've got a 60-year business plan. Jesus, are you going to live 60 years, Grant? That makes you 120. He says, nope. This is my business plan, Will. And I love it. There's a guy there. He's 60 years ahead of himself.
Yeah.
He has 20 years he's gone from being ordinary to being extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's that question going, well, what if? I know for me, I got to 37 and a half, and it was like, it was a low point. I've got the lack of a tooth to show for it, for a start. You could go, right, well, on the law of averages, I'm halfway through my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, history shows what I've done with the first half, and it's okay. I've done well. And all the rest is going, am I happy just to replay that again? I will continue to grow and all the rest. Or do I want to go, what's the extra bit?
Mm-hmm.
Could I be extraordinary
mm-hmm.
by doing something little bits every day, mm-hmm. starting to read a book, making a connection, asking the question? Because I remember people going, God, you've got your goals written down, you're going, oh, whatever, I don't know. I didn't actually always know my goals because I'd never sat down long enough to ask the questions.
Yeah.
And what can be useful as well, and you'll know this from a lot of the techniques, is going, well, let's find out what you don't want. Do you want to be poor? No. Why not? Because it's awful. Okay, that's a good start. Do you want to be sad and miserable? No. Okay. Where are you now? What has happened to you now? And tell us what you don't want. They'll list off 50 things they don't want to be. Okay, well, by the law of, the law of getting rid of all the stuff you don't want, whatever law that is kind of going, you end up with a very select, and people going, but I just want this. Cool. Okay, thank you for telling me what you want and what you don't want. So when you are using a going to energy or going to idea, and suddenly it's going, let's not spend our whole time looking around going, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be this. It's going, well, I want to be, happy and grateful, and I want to be there, and I want to be fit and healthy. Mm-hmm. So that, fit and healthy doesn't have necessarily a weight target or anything else. It's all about, it's a way of life. I want to feel great. I want to be, relaxed and spending time with the kids and the family and all this. And I ooze, sort of flow and joy, and I'm just there and I'm learning, and every day I'm sitting there going, I love to meet Ross, and I love to chat to Ross. Every time I know it's not going to be a 5-minute phone call, and I love that. And I sort of going, yeah, and there's going to be some weird conversations, but, but who you surround yourself with, listen, that's the thing, it's like, we're not a threat to each other. In fact, we're teammates in a battle plan. You have your squad around you. Now that mightn't always be the people that you have at the moment. Mm-hmm. And family, the ego is there to protect you. Family are there to protect you, but family also know the stuff you did wrong in the past. And there's friends are there and all the rest. And you sort of go, well, yeah, but that's not who I am, or all the rest. Going, listen, if you go with the basis that you can be whatever you want to be. Now it might be that you have to break out of your mold a bit. Mm-hmm. And you might need to just keep asking the questions. Like, well, I'm going to look silly. It's like, so what? Mm-hmm. Get over it. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, what if I fail? Mm-hmm. Okay, failing only happens when you stop. Mm-hmm. If you keep going, it's not a fail. It's just like, I'm just trying it again. I'm trying again. If you stop and say, no, listen, I'm crap at that. Okay, you failed. Cool.
It's an evolution, isn't it? Entrepreneurs have to evolve consistently. They have to tap into change and allow that to flow.
But you take your language there. You don't have to. You want to.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Is like, for me, when you're sitting in your passion, you're loving it and going, I want to try something different. Oh well, that didn't work. It's like, I'm glad I tried it, and I know not to do that again. Cool. Let's go to the next thing, as opposed to, oh, that didn't work. Poor me. Get the fuck over yourself.
Yeah, I think I've just had a bit of an insight there. I mean, obviously, with working with people in corporate and with individuals in their own businesses, when that language kind of comes up to the forefront, that to me now tells me that there is a lack of alignment, because right now where I am and where you are in terms of hitting these, stumbling blocks, or, there are opportunities to level up, mate, plain and simple. It's like just, carving a stone into a fine piece of art. That's all it is. You knock a piece of stone away. It didn't quite work. Well, actually, this would work if I knocked this away. And wow, that's exactly what I had in my mind. I just couldn't see it at that time. So when there's a lack of alignment, I think you get that kind of language like, I was kind of hoping that, this was going to get me to, the golden pot a lot quicker. Perhaps that might suggest people have got the wrong focus, the wrong vision, or perhaps they're living somebody else's life. So just want to reiterate some of the things that you brought up, because there's some absolute gems there, Pete. So first and foremost is accept your situation and make a decision and change your direction. I know the word pivot is quite big right now, and quite rightfully so. Pivot to me is just changing direction, but it just doesn't necessarily involve how you're going to do it, how you're going to evolve. Secondarily is to go out into the future and identify how the situation would be if it was working perfectly, and perhaps 3, 5, 10 years in the future. And you use the Grant Cardone story, which is incredibly powerful. And then it was about creating structure. So you broke it down into components, and the smaller the better. And you referred to Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. Great book. If you haven't read it out there, listeners, read that book, digest it, and keep it open for the rest of your life, because the message in there, they really resonate with entrepreneurs and, the gladiators in business. Focusing on that one thing just reduces, overwhelm and stress and all that kind of stuff. And then, finally, it was like having a battle plan. So having clear goals and, sticking to that plan and maintaining that focus on the future rather than looking over your shoulder, like you quite rightfully said, Pete. Looking over your shoulder, walking down the street, a high street somewhere. If you look over your shoulder for long enough, you're going to fall down a manhole. And if no one notices that you've gone down there and you broke your leg, you ain't getting out anytime soon here. So that was an immense amount of information. Really appreciate you sharing your story. I've benefited from it. I'm sure the listeners will as well. So just tell the audience or the listeners how they can get in touch with you again and what you can specifically help them with. Can you just give the listeners an insight into, what you can help them with, or
Sure.
where they can find you and what you can help them with, please, Pete?
Sure. Yeah. Again, so fireinthebelly.net is the website. You can listen to the Fire in the Belly podcast, which is where I get to ask a lot of questions. I generally sit fairly silent and ask questions. Again, that's what it's all about, is asking the right questions. So I do 90-day programs. I do one-to-one mentorships. The 90-day program is what I call the launch program. Mm-hmm. That's people who actually want to go in and it's focused on actually boots on the ground. It is getting stuff done. It doesn't need to be massively complicated, and you will grow a sustainable, you going in and you are essentially building a battle plan, and it's like, I know you do a lot of great work, Ross, there, and that's the thing. It's the same, aspect of game, helping people to, one, find their passion. So saying, what's holding you back, and I'm not going to focus on it, but it's going, what's there, what do you really want to do, what's your opportunity? Let's have 90 days of consistent action of knocking on the door and kicking it down. Yeah. And it's like the old adage, and they talked about in Chicken Soup for the Soul, it's like, if you see a big tree and you take 5 swipes at it every day with an axe, eventually that tree's coming down. Mm-hmm. It mightn't come down today, it mightn't come down tomorrow, but that tree's coming down. If you keep taking 5 swipes every day, it's a matter of inertia, it will come down. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about it, and saying, well, I have a bigger program, which is the 365 program, because listen, we all need a tribe, we all need a troop. Because there is days and you go on, I can't be bothered, or I've lost sight of what I'm doing, or I haven't seen the battle plan for a while, and it's what, how do I get people back together again? So again, you lose focus because you shoot off down a rabbit hole or down a side street or whatever it is. So you go, hold on, what's my intention here? Yeah. Is that still my intention? Yes, it is. Does that feel right inside me? And that's what I really want to do. That's my burning desire. If that's your burning desire, after a while, and like any sort of an oil tank or whatever it is, it takes a while to get going, but then the momentum starts building and building and building. Yeah. And that's why, for me, it's about passive income. It's about systems. It's about tools. It's about processes, so that your off days this momentum is built. In fact, my one thing I would say to anyone is going, if you're not earning money while you sleep, you are basically earning, exchanging time for money. Mm-hmm. So unless you can find a way of doing that, so it could be a podcast. We record this once, it can be listened to X number of times. Mm-hmm. A online shop can be used around the world. Tools, and the tools that I know that you will give people, Ross, and helping people in doing that, it's a tool, but that can be used over and over and over again. But not only that, it's about having, coming back to your squad or coming back to your tribe. And they're the ones that saying, listen, we love you, we respect you, we know you have no limits, we know you have capability. Come on, where you at? Let's do a systems check here. Let's do a quick inventory of what's going on. Right, move forward, soldier. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And that's why I know you can do so much for people out there, and I'm delighted for you, buddy.
Oh, I appreciate that. I really do. I just want to reiterate that final point there that you brought up. It's revisiting your battle plan, whatever that might be, in a consistent fashion, almost daily, perhaps, in your thoughts, returning to it. Think, well, hang on a minute. Why are we doing this? What's the purpose behind it? What are we actually doing here? Does this still fit the battle space, shall we say? Military terminology, obviously I've got a history in it, so it's going to come out at some point. But, you've got to be able to return back to it so you maintain that alignment. I really like that. Well, listen, Pete, this has been absolutely fantastic. You've definitely put fire back in my belly, mate. I really appreciate you giving me and the listeners your time. I wish you all the best for your future endeavours. I'm sure we'll be speaking again at some point. I'd very much like to have you back on. But to the listeners out there, make sure you take Pete's advice. Make a decision in times of adversity. Perhaps right now you're feeling a little bit of pain. A decision needs to be made one way or the other. Change the direction in which you're going to go. So go out into the future, identify what you want in 3, 5, perhaps 10 years time, then work back. So reverse engineer all the way back to, what are you going to do in the next hour? Because with having all of that stuff ahead of you without a structure to it, it's going to cause, increasing amounts of overwhelm, and nobody likes that at the best of times. So that's a good indication if you don't have all this in place. And then finally, obviously take action, surround yourself with the right people, and also revisit that battle plan, because that's the battle plan that's going to get you back into safe territory and, flying the flags, shall we say. So listen, we appreciate you listening in, and we're looking forward to having you on the next one.
Thanks very much, Ross. Really appreciate it.
Pete. Cheers, buddy.